Hey, friends, and welcome back to the Show Up season of the Mary Marantz Show, a season where we are just going to keep on reminding you over and over all season long that we never asked you to be perfect. We just asked you to show up so that you can let this be the year when you finally show up and get moving on all those things you can't go a day without thinking about. We are so excited that this episode is being brought to you ad-free by the Writing Prompts, my brand new guide that was just announced yesterday. It is a 50 plus prompt guide, 120 plus pages, where I not only tell you what to write about each day, I also use each prompt to teach you a different aspect of a writing technique so that you get better and better in the craft of writing and visual storytelling every day that you show up. And it also comes with 4 group coaching calls all throughout the month of February. So, like I've been saying, give me a month and I will make you a better writer. We've dropped the link in the show notes on both all the podcast platforms and on YouTube. So no matter where you are listening or watching, you can head over and go check those out. Now, on with the show. I saw an interview recently with Matt Damon where he was talking about making movies in the age of streaming and what it's like to partner with a streaming giant like Netflix. He said that there had been actual talks and actual meetings where the Netflix execs had actually suggested that they recap, reiterate, restate for the audience even the plot no less than 3, 4, 5 times throughout the movie, because what they know is that most people aren't paying attention anymore when they're watching a movie on their couch, right? They're also sitting there scrolling on their phones, watching TikTok, couch rotting, whatever the case may be. And so their solution was to actually just go ahead and at different intervals of the movie recap what had happened so far in case they weren't paying attention. And to that I say, oh wow, have we literally lost the plot? Personally, I think that this idea of accommodating people not paying attention is us going in the wrong direction, 180 degrees in the wrong direction. We instead need to find ways to tell the kind of stories that hold people's attention, that make them not want to look away for even a second. We're going to talk more about that here in a bit, but first I want to stay here with this idea of accommodating an audience with a shorter and shorter attention span. As a huge movie lover myself, I pay a lot of attention to the commentary around the films that are coming out. And one thing I've been seeing over and over that my fellow film buffs have been complaining about is this tendency now in most of the films that are coming out to really spoon feed the information to the audience. Let me actually give you an old example to start. One of mine and Justin's all-time favorite movies is The Day After Tomorrow. We're huge fans of the disaster movie genre in general, and this is one of the first ones that ever made us fall in love with that genre to begin with. So there's this scene where they are running all the models. They've input all the data. The buoys in the North Atlantic are dropping 13 degrees, and they put it all into this program. And they realize that the North Atlantic current has been destabilized by desalinization. And at this moment, that it's sort of the crescendo of the emotion of what's coming in just the next couple weeks. There's this one scientist lady who pipes up in the crowd and says, "That would explain all the strange weather we've been having." Now, this movie came out in 2004, and to this day, when one of us, either Justin or myself, says something really Captain Obvious on the nose of, did that really need to be said? The other one will turn around and look at them and say, that would explain all the strange weather we've been having. 22 years later, and we're still quoting that movie, we're still quoting that one line. But here's the thing. I think one of the reasons that stuck out to us so much at the time back then and left such a lasting impact that it felt so unusual is because this wasn't the norm at the time. Because it was so unusual for a character to state something so obvious, so spoon-fed for the audience. I mean, we're talking about the late 1990s and the early 2000s, where we get movies like The Matrix, Memento, Fight Club, The Sixth Sense that kept audiences guessing until the very last minute. And we thrived on it. We were smarter because of it. Now we have streaming studios suggesting that movies should restate the plot for us at least 5 times, lest we actually have to put our phones down and pay attention. And on the one hand, I get it. In an age of short form videos, AI slop, everything is hashtag content, we are more distractible now than we've ever been. But playing into that, accommodating that, is the wrong way to go. I read an absolutely fantastic article about so-called compression culture by writer Malvika called "Compression Culture is Making You Stupid and Uninteresting." We'll make sure we link that up in the show notes. But it's based on this idea that we've gone from books, full-fledged books, to Cliff's Notes, to 3-minute video recaps, to 30-second video recaps, to now somebody saying, TLDR, can someone please just summarize this 30-second video for me in the space of just 3 seconds? And we've watched that shrinking capacity for attention or to learn new things or to, just actually absorb the art someone has created shrink that quickly, fall off a cliff that fast in just the last 10 years or so. And it seems to be picking up speed. So that now we just can't seem to get it in short enough form. We want it just more and more reductive, more and more watered down. We don't want to give any of our even 3 seconds of attention to it. We just want somebody to explain it. And in that article, the author talks about all that we are missing out on when we do that. That true change only happens in us when we actually do the work, when we read the words ourselves, when we sit through the edginess of not knowing what's going to turn out in the plot of the movie that we're falling in love with and will hopefully be quoting 22 years later. When we ask ourselves the tough questions about what we would do in that situation or what we think about what the book or the movie or the show or the speech is saying. In other words, when we actually experience it as if we were a part of the story. Like I said earlier, have we lost the plot if we think just summarizing the movie is the solution? Because the truth is there is nothing humans love more than having a delicious mystery to solve. We love to be an active participant in the story. In fact, in her book Wired for Story, Lisa Cron talks all about how our brains are these pattern recognition machines that are actually wired down to a biological imperative level to reward us. Hello, dopamine, adrenaline, oxytocin, oh my, for figuring things out. She says that we actually use stories as simulations to figure out what we would do in those situations. So the simulations actually become key to our survival. So then not having it spoon-fed to us, right? That would explain all the strange weather we've been having, or worse, summarized for us in bullet point form, is actually crucial to our survival as humans, as a society, as lovers of art and films and great books and the transformative power of good storytelling and good storytellers. In fact, one of the things I actually teach a whole section on in my brand new, just launched yesterday at the time this airs, Mary Marantz Writing Prompt Pack is this idea of reader as active participant. This is what I like to call the ... moment in really good writing. It is that decision by you as the author to show the restraint to allow the reader to fill in the blanks and have that aha moment all in their own. Let me start by giving you a really simple example. Last year, Justin and I were making the long drive home from North Carolina to Connecticut, and we were several hours into this drive, so the billboards on the side of the road were all just a blur at this point. None of them was registering. None of them was cutting through the noise. That is until I saw one Cracker Barrel billboard that had just 2 words and a picture of a plate of food on it. The 2 words were winner, winner. So what was the plate of food? It was a chicken dinner, right? And that moment when your brain just came up with the answer before I told you what it was, and you lit up and suddenly anchored back in and started paying attention, closer attention to everything I was saying, that you were suddenly alive and hanging on every word in a different way than maybe you have been. That moment is the power of the ... So no, the answer to our distracted society is not to accommodate that with more recaps and restating the summaries and boiling it down to a shorter and shorter and shorter form. The answer is to create more stories that give the audience some work to do. There's a part in my second book, Slow Growth Equals Strong Roots, where I talk about stopping off at Lake Mead and the Lake Mead fish. How we stopped off there at this man-made lake in the middle of the desert on our drive from Las Vegas to the Grand Canyon with the intention of stretching our legs, but it instead actually stretched how we end up seeing our purpose. At a certain point, as you're walking down from the parking lot to the lake, the walkway at once gives way to this floating dock because there's actually a hatchery there on site at the visitor center. And as soon as our feet hit that dock and it became unstable, the water all around us came alive on either side of us. I mean, it honestly kind of looked like a scene out of Jaws after somebody just threw chum in the water. Like we were kind of scared for our lives at one point. But it was just alive, and all we could see sort of coming to the surface were all of these gray, gulping fish flopping all over one another, pushing one another down, just fighting it out there in captivity for a share of the crumbs. Meanwhile, if they would have only turned around and gone in the other direction, they would have seen that freedom was behind them. This open expanse stretching out in front of them, if they would have only been willing to go the opposite way, to go the opposite direction of where the crowd is trying to go. If you read that book or you've heard me speak about it anywhere on a podcast somewhere, maybe, you know that I also went on to compare that scene to playing a game of kindergarten basketball. There is no honor among thieves, and there is no zone defense among 5-year-olds. Instead, everyone just chases the ball every which way it rolls, and then they wonder why they're exhausted and in desperate need of some orange slices and a juice box and a nap. I said that the whole energy to me, the fish and the kindergarten basketball felt frantic, frenzied, frenetic. It's this feeling in our business and our creative work that Justin and I know if we ever start to feel that sort of feeling rising up that they're doing this, maybe we should too. We know that we're already on the wrong track. We know we're already going the wrong direction. And how these 3 words, frantic, frenzied, and frenetic, also really remind me of another word, frequency. Like the frequency of a molecule, which if you know anything about science or how molecules work, it means that the frequency is just these atoms vibrating left and right just to try to hold the molecule together. It means that we're expending all of this energy looking left and looking right, looking left and looking right, just to barely hold it all together. Most people, most creatives, are going to look at an increasingly distracted world and think the answer is a race to the bottom for who can spoon feed the audience content in its most dumbed down, watered down, least common denominator version of itself. But the truth is, freedom is in the other direction. Keep your audience intrigued, keep your audience guessing, give your audience some work to do. You may have often heard me say, distracted work will never be your legacy. And now I would also add, work that was created to be consumed by a distracted generation will also never be your legacy. To accommodate and encourage this distraction, that will also never be our legacy. Don't keep compression culturing your work down to the lowest form or denominator. Don't make bullet points out of what should only speak in volumes. You do not need to reduce yourself down into 7-second sound bites just to compete with the roaring fire hose of information and noise and everyone flopping all over each other, fighting it out in captivity just to get a share of the crumbs, just to see who can say the least in the least amount of time. You are called to more than that. I am called to more than that. Distracted work will never be your legacy. Deep work will. Until next time, friends, this is the Mary Marantz Show, and welcome to your Show Up season. P.S. Don't forget to go check out the writing prompts. These are 50 prompts and a 120-page guide that will make you a better writer. Give me a month and I'll make you a better writer. And it also gets you, remember, that entire month of February coaching calls, 4 group coaching calls in total. We've linked it all up in the show notes on podcast platforms and on YouTube. So head on over and check it out now. We have them on pre-sale special. They officially launch on Monday. The special is that they are currently just $99, regularly $397. So go jump on it and we will see you next time.